What is up, guys? Here's my special guest, Levin T Black from Gold Standard Podcast. How's it going, dude?
Oh, it's going well. Not a whole lot special about me, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have everybody within the community, but we got a lot of this offseason going on. But, let's talk about last season. Let's go with the honest opinion looking forward into this upcoming next season. So, give me your thoughts about the Niners in general. But before we get to that topic, tell everybody where they can find your social media platform.
Well, I'm on Twitter at takesby11, which you can see on the screen. And then I do a lot of work for the Gold Standard Network, which you can find on YouTube. You can find that on Facebook, and you can find it on Instagram as well. On Instagram, it is GSN 49ers.
Oh, yeah. I see you work with Rob, Stats Guys, and quite a few other dudes. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to work with Rob, but it's all good.
I've been trying to get him on, but I guess he's been too busy with his schedule. But seems like he goes with the stat baits or something.
I mean, it's just he's got a lot on his plate right now. I mean, his life is been thrown for a loop. So
yeah. So going into the Niners season review, what do you think about the previous season and what you can look forward into going into this offseason?
Seasons like last season, they're always a love-hate relationship for me. Just like 2019, and the season before even. Yes, it was successful. Yes, you have 28 other teams that would gladly take the season the 49ers had. And probably half of those teams haven't had a season like the 49ers had last year in a long time. That said, if it doesn't end up in a Super Bowl victory, it kind of just is a bad taste to me. It's like when I look back, I go, could have, should have been, could have been. It's all about what didn't happen. And I think that part of that is just being a fan of a team that's won 5 Super Bowls, but hasn't won one in coming up on 30 years. So it's kind of like if you want to call it PTSD, I don't know, but like I can't fully look back and enjoy a season unless it ended in a Super Bowl. And it's been so long, I can't even remember when it happened. So, that's how I feel about last season. It was a phenomenal season. It was certainly a successful season. The Brock Purdy emergence was maybe the most fun I've had as a 49er fan, because I was only like 9 years old when they won the Super Bowl, so I can't really claim that year. But at the same time, I look back and I go, what could have been?
Yeah, what could have been, a lot of this little interesting season, we just go from a third string quarterback, injuries after injuries. Under the previous years, when Shanahan had these issues at quarterback getting hurt, man, our season was pretty much over. But it was just a miracle how we just overcame it and went with a third string quarterback that was the last pick of the draft. He had the making of being on Walt Disney, but that story just ended.
Well, I think if you take the 49ers and compare them to the rest of the NFL and you eliminate quarterback from the equation, I don't think there's any question the 49ers have the number one team.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is quarterback matters so much, and there's a massive difference between the current 49ers quarterbacks and the quarterbacks that are out there of the other top teams like the Chiefs.
Yeah. Like as far as roster talent-wise, we have a really good defense. Our offense kind of has the potential to be in the top 5 for sure. But last year, what we've seen from Brock Purdy, that offense went into another level with Christian McCaffrey. So my thoughts of the last season was when we made that trade for McCaffrey, that caught me by surprise. That was like the move that I did not see coming. And a lot of these free agent moves, man, I did not think for 1 second we were even go for somebody like Hargrave, man. I didn't think that way. I didn't think one bit.
I think it's a shift. I think there's been an all-in kind of shift. They haven't been able to get over the hump trying to play both sides of it, of keeping the future in mind as well as pushing in for this season. I think Christian McCaffrey last year was kind of an all-in move. Hey, we're going to get him. He also helps for the next couple of years, but it does put a strain on our salary cap. And then the Hargrave. What did we see in the playoffs? The 49ers didn't get as much pressure as you would have hoped for the defense. They still played well, but it's kind of like I said, what could have been if they had somebody else other than Bosa that could have done anything. A lot of the other guys in the playoffs weren't consistent, and that really showed up. when it came to the playoffs, when teams really started focusing on just, we're going to shut down Bosa and make somebody else do it, and nobody else was capable.
Yeah. And I think getting Hargrave just pushes it to another level. I mean, when you look at the guys that we expected to step up, Javon Kinlaw's kind of been like a disappointment. Like we expected this guy to make some big leaps. Armstead, when he can get healthy on the field, he is a difference maker, but just not in that same caliber level like you would expect from a DeForest Buckner and those other guys.
Yeah, he's a difference maker in a way that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. And that's nice, and you certainly need some of those guys. It does raise the question of whether or not you want to be paying somebody like that $20+ million, or would you rather invest it in somebody who might not be as well-rounded of a defensive lineman, but what they're great at is penetrating and getting to that quarterback. Armstead, he creates a lot of havoc. He allows a lot of these other guys that we've seen rotate in the last probably last 3 years, 4 years, the Kerry Hyders, the Aminahus, the guys that have come in and revitalized their career. A lot of that is because Armstead is next to him, and Armstead's able to take on double teams and not just get whooped when he's taking on a double team.
Oh, yeah.
And that's allowing these guys a one-on-one situation. It's just kind of one of those things. Armstead is a phenomenal player, but do you want to pay a premium for guys who don't get the sacks?
Yeah, you want to pay somebody who can get the production, but Armstead, when he's on the field, he is a difference maker. He'll take a lot of those double teams and here and there. But I like this question since we're kind of going into the offseason debate right here. Do you think McKivitz is going to do better than, I guess he's kind of throwing the buzz on Mike McGlinchey, or are we drafting a starter?
I think McKivitz could survive because of who the head coach is. I do think that Shanahan will be able to limit enough for McKivitz and help him enough with just play design, as well as having the guard help him. But at the same time, like, you certainly want, I think, somebody better. I think McKivitz is kind of one of those ideal backups who's capable of filling in, but not somebody that you want to be counting on for 17 games. The problem is the 49ers don't have money to spend to go get a starter. There isn't really a starter out there in free agency, which is why McGlinchey got as much money as he did, because it was kind of a weak market this year. And he was certainly the top one available. And then at the same time, you don't have a draft pick till the third. So the likelihood of hitting on somebody that can come in and start day one in one of the most complicated blocking offenses there is pretty slim. So the reality is McKivitz is going to start in a very high likelihood, unless they just, get, I would call it luck of finding somebody in the third round or later that can come in and start day one.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one because McKivitz is already like ahead of the playbook. He already knows what he's going to do. So they paid him on a really bargain deal compared to having McGlinchey back. I mean, McGlinchey was taking, $17.5 million a year. McKivitz is like, like 2 or 3.5 or something less? I mean,
it's McKivitz is being paid backup money, put it that way.
And he's more like the
That's
bridge.
Kind of telling, right?
Yeah.
McKivitz is getting backup money, and he was willing to sign it. So that tells you what he thinks and what the team thinks in reality. It's just he might be the best option for this next season.
Oh, yeah. McKivitz is just like one of those guys that you can just put as your bridge starter, and then until you find the next guy, I think maybe in the draft you can just either, I don't know, maybe we might just wait in the third round or maybe move up a little more to get somebody that's a starting caliber, somebody, or maybe
wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me, but there's quite a few guys out there that I like. I mean, Blake Freeland is another guy I've heard about. Like, he fits our scheme. He's very athletic. He seems more like a suitable replacement for McGlinchey, and maybe give the competition for McKivitz. Or I've heard a lot of these other topics that maybe they might want to reconsider. Like, maybe they want to consider moving Burford to tackle, but I don't know if that's the case, man. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like
I don't see that? I don't see Burford going to tackle.
Yeah, I mean, through my own sources of somebody I've talked to, I might talk to this guy every now and then, but he hasn't been asked to move the tackle at this point, so he's more focused on where he's at.
Yeah, it's that's certainly, I think, the biggest question mark on the team, though. The right tackle position and the offensive line in general. I think that's the one unit that I don't necessarily trust. Everything else, like I think it's amongst the best in the league, other than obviously quarterback. But I like where the quarterback position is overall. I think there's a lot of upside there. Like what Purdy did, obviously tremendous. If he's healthy, it should be his job. And at the same time, I'm really high on Trey Lance. I think that if he gets the opportunity to play, because Purdy is not capable of going until, say, like week 4, I don't think Trey Lance will relinquish that job. I think if Trey Lance gets 3 games, I think there's a very good chance. We don't know the schedule at this point, but I think there's a very good chance the Niners are sitting at 3-0 and Lance has good numbers. And if that's the case, I don't see Kyle Shanahan pulling the trigger to go back to Purdy. That's not his MO. He doesn't tend to replace anybody as long as they're winning.
Yeah, it's all about winning, but you know how different coaches like Harbaugh, he would go with the hot hand. So Shanahan's always been sticking with his guy. If he feels like he's doing well, he's not going to change it. But I don't know about this question, Randy, but if we were in that situation, oh man, that's interesting. I don't know about.
No way. The only way Shanahan is not the coach a year from now is if some skeleton comes out from his past, all Gruden. And I don't think Shanahan is that type of guy. I don't think Shanahan has those type of skeletons. Could be wrong. You never know with that type of stuff, but I don't see him getting fired because of something performance-wise on the field.
I mean,
even if he has, like, say the Niners have a terrible season and they go like 6-11, Lance doesn't pan out, Purdy can't get back, and Darnold is what Sam Darnold has been, and they only go 6-11. I don't see Shanahan getting let go after that. He would be brought back. He would be on the hot seat, but he'd be brought back.
Yeah, I don't see no change of him at this point. I mean, there's not any other coaches that would be taking that position that he's doing. I mean, maybe he's doing too much as taking too much play calling, but do you really think we need a play caller that can make it easy for him, or you think he's good as a play caller?
No, I think Shanahan is good as a play caller. I think he's the best play caller in the league. Where Shanahan fails is situational decisions. When to go for it on 4th down. That one is the big one. He's not great at that, and I wish somebody else made those decisions and he gave up control in those scenarios, or at least had somebody that had very heavy sway with him in those scenarios. Because, like, they have the computer rankings out where they can run the probability of, if you go for it on this 4th down and say 2, you got a 70% chance of getting it. If you punt, the other team has this % chance of going down and scoring, and how that factors into the overall win probability of your team, And in terms of making the right decision of when to go for it on 4th down, the 49ers are way in dead last over the last 3 years. Like, it's not even close. Shanahan is terrible at that. And I think it's because when he's been asked about that in his press conferences, he's been basically, to make a long story short, he says it's a gut decision. The way he phrases it is, it depends on the situation and how he feels like the game is going and how well the offense has been moving and all that. So he's very much trusts his gut in that situation, and his gut is wrong. A lot of times he needs to be more analytical, I think, in that scenario.
I mean, he gets a little bit too conservative. That's the problem. Yeah. Like, if it's 4th and short and it's in the biggest game of them all, man, you got to take the chances. I mean, you don't see a lot of teams just say, you know what, I believe in our defense. We're going to kick the ball and let them get the ball. But then what happens if the defense doesn't bail them out? Then you're in a bigger hole. And that's
why you have a great defense. You're not going to be able to win every single time. Sometimes you're stuck in a situation, when you go for it on 4th down, you might not be able to come up and get the right answer every time. You could go for it and lose. And in the same time, you could not go for it and lose. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're not going to have the capability of winning because the other team is, if they get the ball back, they, because you punted, they have the right play calls to go down and score. You can't know that at the time you're punting, but that's the reality of what could be coming. You never know. You got to make your best decision. And that's why I think you should be very analytical about it with only slight adjustments for gut feelings and game flow. If you're analytical, you're giving your team the best chance to win, and that's backed up statistically.
Yeah, if Shanahan just had a little more confidence and a little cockiness into him and say this is going to work on 4th and short.
That's the big thing. I think the quarterback situation has been a big part of it. I will be very curious to see if either Purdy comes back or Lance emerged, and you have a true quarterback that Kyle Shanahan trusts, I'll be curious to see if he kind of flips it. And that would be very telling then that, okay, it was because he doesn't trust his quarterback in a, kind of do or die fourth down. And that would be an indictment on Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be the biggest question mark in this offseason is our quarterback position because Brock Purdy's going to have to recover. We don't know if he'll be the same, but taking some time. But
Aren't you sick of this question?
Yeah, I'm sick of this question.
This has been the biggest offseason question every single year since Jeff Garcia left the team.
Yeah.
Like there was about a 2-year respite where, okay, Jeff Garcia emerged and, he had the year where he set the franchise record for yards passing. He still owns that, by the way. And he had back-to-back 30-plus touchdown seasons, which, by the way, are the last 2 30-plus touchdown seasons for the 49ers. We're going on 20 years at this point.
Yeah, 20 years ago. That's
it's been 20 years of this question of, what's going to happen to the quarterback position?
We don't even know because it's a mystery. Because every offseason, nobody knows who our quarterback's going to be. Because even with Jimmy Garoppolo, it was always a durability.
This is the biggest question mark
of them all
year, I think, of the Shanahan era. Because, you look at last year, we knew Lance was starting. That was said. We didn't know if he would remain the starter, but we knew he was starting. You look at the year before, they made it clear, hey, Garoppolo is going to start. Lance will have a chance if something happens. So they've been on record like this is the guy in the past. But right now you have, they want Purdy to be the guy, but Purdy's not healthy. And Lance still has some potential, but it's a real question mark on whether or not they believe in Lance or, Lance could get moved here. We don't know. So it's, in my opinion, the biggest question mark there is. I mean, even like the first year with Shanahan, we knew Hoyer was starting and we knew it wouldn't last, but we knew he was starting.
like if you had Hoyer as your starter, then something is just wrong, man. I mean, that guy just seems more like a coach at this point of his career. Like he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would just be a great player. No, he was a system guy that knew everything, but see, that's the question.
Now he's Jimmy Garoppolo's backup. So it's come full circle, right?
Yeah, they come full circle. Like originally he left when he was let go before they even got Garoppolo at the time.
Yeah, well, Garoppolo replaced Hoyer essentially. When they got Garoppolo, they let Hoyer move on. And then at the same time now, Hoyer is Garoppolo's backup. So it's kind of like it is a weird full circle here for Hoyer at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the one question mark that everybody's even curious to know about is Sam Darnold, bro. Like, we just took a 1-year deal. Everybody's praising him like he can be the next Alex Smith or have a resurrection career. What's your argument about why Sam Darnold is a good pickup?
Look, I think he's a fine pickup. I think he's a fine backup. He's somebody that has potential, and in a 1 or 2 games sample where he has to go in and replace the injured starter for a couple games, I think he could be good. Like that's all you can ask for out of a backup. You can't ask a backup to come in and be a 300-yard passer and 3 touchdowns. Like if that's what he does, he would be a starter somewhere. But if he can come in and not destroy things for you and make a play or two, on time, follow the schedule, follow the reads, that's all you can ask for out of a backup. So I was happy he was signed as the backup. He's somebody that I posted 2 years ago that I would be fine with the team bringing in prior to the Trey Lance trade up and draft. I was fine with Darnold being brought in. I think there's potential there. I think thinking he will actually suddenly change his stripes and what he is after 50-plus career starts is not a very good bet to be making. Like, is it possible? Yeah, anything's possible. Look at the season Geno Smith just had. Look at what happened, like we said, with Alex Smith. I think we know the particulars about Alex Smith more because it was the coaching carousel for him as offensive coordinators, which, Darnold has had a kind of similar situation, but at the same time, he's had multiple teams believe in him, bring him in to be the starter, and then very quickly go, he's not it. So it's a little different than Alex Smith, where the team kept him around because they kept believing in him. They didn't want to move on from Alex Smith. because by the time he emerged with Harbaugh, he was on his second contract, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different scenario here where multiple teams have given up on Darnold.
Yeah.
Nobody gave up on Alex Smith.
Nah, it's just the coaching changes and all that stuff. That's what it was, because a lot of it was difficult to overcome. I don't even think Aaron Rodgers would have survived with that type of changing coaches.
No.
Like a lot of our fan base would even say Rodgers would have won us a Super Bowl. Dude, have you seen our situation? I don't think it would have been any better than what we had.
That's some hindsight BS, honestly.
Yeah.
Because those of us that are old enough to remember that draft lead up, the MO on Rodgers was he was going to be a project because he had a terrible throwing motion and was going to have to be overworked. And he wasn't going to be able to come in and be a day one starter. Well, if he came to the 49ers, he was going to be a day one starter. He wasn't going to get the time that he had under Brett Favre. The best thing that happened to Aaron Rodgers, and he likes to hold a grudge over it, but it's the best thing that happened to him, was that he went and backed up a Hall of Famer so that none of the fans were clamoring for get Rodgers in there, and he was pushed in too soon to save somebody's job. He went to a good team that was capable of winning, that had an unquestioned starter, so he was able to sit and develop and fix all of the kinks and mistakes in his delivery.
Yeah, and I think this is a complete different situation for when people compare the difference. Like, we won't know because the coaching situation, the culture wise, I mean, it doesn't like. I mean, Rodgers isn't going to be successful on a team that has coaching changes coming off a team that was 2-14, a new head coach. Then they have a change of offensive coordinators every other year. It's like
Right.
you see they get these offense coordinators that you would think, man, they would stick around, but you get the likes of what you call Mike McCarthy, who eventually became a head coach of the Packers, and then you get somebody like a Norv Turner who becomes the Chargers head coach, and then you get the Mike Martz of the world. I don't know if that would work out for Rodgers. That's just too much to overcome.
Yeah, it was a bad situation, and I do think it's a little different for Sam Darnold. Like I said, multiple teams have already given up on him, and it's also he doesn't have delivery issues. His throwing capability is great. I mean, he is a really good thrower of the football. The problem for Darnold is all up here. He doesn't make the best decisions, and he's even, famously put it into words by saying he sees ghosts. It's the mental part of it.
Yeah, I never.
And to me, the mental part of it is the hardest part to fix because you either have it or you don't. And I think people underestimate. I've been lucky enough to talk to a few NFL level quarterbacks. They underestimate how smart you truly have to be an NFL quarterback. I remember it's been a long time ago. It was back when I was in college 15 plus years ago. I believe it was ESPN, the magazine, that did the article, but it could have been Sports Illustrated back when they were still a magazine. But they did a study and they got enough NFL quarterbacks to participate and do an IQ test. And like 90% of them were all at genius level. Like,
Yeah.
You have to be incredibly smart to be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, it's because they have to either have the understanding of the playbooks and all the stuff they do and the throw-in decisions,
And your brain has to be fast because it's so quick, and you can't train that. You're not going to be able to train that ability. Pretty quickly, you're going to, obviously, if you're a rookie and you're adjusting to the speed of the NFL, that's a little bit different. But very quickly, you're going to get to know whether or not your brain is truly fast enough.
Yeah, absolutely. But like when we look back at it, when you look at the draft of these players, I mean, a lot of this analysis and a lot of this this narrative towards doubting Trey Lance, man, it's been going on since we kind of like fooled them and thinking that we were going to get Mac Jones when it wasn't even the case. Like, where's all this doubt coming from? I've never seen that much doubt on a quarterback who's only played 4 games. I mean, started 4 games.
Well, I think it's you had a win now team trade up all the way to number 3 and draft a project quarterback while they had a quarterback already there who had a tremendous winning percentage where you had already made it to the Super Bowl with him. So that leads to kind of the narrative. Okay, you have a project quarterback, but you already have this guy winning. So why should he be starting? You're a win now team. Don't go with the project. And I think that was kind of the groundwork for this negative mindset when it comes to Trey Lance, where it wasn't going to be a positive mindset from the start. And I think that's kind of just snowballed now that he hasn't been able to play due to injuries, to where now anybody who doubted him is able to sit there and be negative about him, and you got no argument against it because he's not been able to play to prove them wrong.
Yeah, the only difference, okay, like the only argument that seems reasonable is because of the experience, the starting experience, the way he played. He didn't play a lot of starts in college. I can see that as a reason, but in previous years, a lot of our fan base have been upset about us passing on certain players that turned out to be really good. Like everybody looked at Patrick Mahomes. This guy was listed as a project. So we're taking a flyer on somebody like Patrick Mahomes, and he's training with Patrick Mahomes. So then you look at a guy like Josh Allen, project too. I mean, like you said, Aaron Rodgers, a project too. So the Niners are taking that route. Like they've missed out on some players that people listed them as projects. And we had a good situation. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo was still with the team, and we had a team building around. And we didn't have to rush Trey Lance. That was what made it so great of a situation, was we were still winning and we were able to develop that quarterback, not rush him. You know, we would just give him some time to learn that play, but we would think it would work in our favor, but injuries were unfortunate.
Right. I think situation matters when it comes to creating a certain narrative. So Aaron Rodgers, he was able to sit, you know, he went to a team similar to the 49ers. You know, the Packers thought they were contenders, right? And he was a project. The difference is Rodgers slid in the draft, and then the Packers were able to swoop in and get him. So they didn't, you know, go out of their way to trade up and get him. They got him at a bargain. So when you trade 3 first-round picks for a guy, the narrative is going to be he better be playing, and if he's not playing, what's wrong? And I think that's what's happening with Trey Lance. What happened with Josh Allen? Yeah, he was a project, but he was able to play. So he got to play his way through it, and he wasn't good until he got enough experience and suddenly things clicked. He still has, I would argue, Josh Allen's clearly one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he still turns the ball over a lot, and we saw that this year. So it's not, a perfect thing. Patrick Mahomes, that's the unicorn situation. Yeah, I remember he was billed as a project, but everybody was wrong. He's literally quite possibly the most talented quarterback to ever play the sport. So that just goes to show you how terrible teams are at scouting.
Yeah, I mean, nobody expected him to be where he's at, but when you watched his film in college, man, he was putting up some numbers. But a lot of these quarterbacks who came from Texas Tech didn't have too much of a career until Patrick Mahomes changed that trend. The guy was like, he was still learning. And once they got this kid coming into Kansas City, I just thought it was kind of a weird situation. I thought they had some faith in Alex Smith, but probably for the long term, they were looking for that guy going forward. So it worked out for the favor for the Chiefs. We're just hoping the same thing because we had it with Jimmy Garoppolo and we thought he was the guy. And then as it comes out, if it wasn't for the injuries for Garoppolo, I think it would have been a different situation. But for whatever reason, we felt like taking Trey Lance was that risk we were willing to take and we were willing to gamble it,
Yeah, it would be, like I said, I think if Trey Lance is capable of staying healthy and he gets an opportunity to start because Purdy is not healthy, I don't think he's going to relinquish that job. I think he's going to be really good. I still have a faith in Trey Lance from what I saw. To me, the only question I have on Trey Lance is his health. At this point, you have to consider him an injury-prone player because his first year, he injured his thumb at the end of the preseason. And there was talk, there's still been little whispers here and there, still to this day, that if he hadn't injured his thumb, he would have been the starter. And that kind of, finished that argument, that Shanahan was torn and then he got hurt. And then later that same season, he gets a chance to be the starter due to the injury and he gets injured. And then the next season, he is the unquestioned starter and he gets injured. So he's got 3 injuries and he's played 4 games. Like,
that is a question mark.
Yeah, that is the biggest question to Trey Lance. I don't think the talent to me is a question. To me, the question is, can he stay healthy? And is he going to get an opportunity? Because what Purdy did last year means that if he's healthy, he should be the starter. To me, there's nothing that Trey Lance can do in training camp and preseason that should trump what Purdy did in regular season and playoff games last year.
Yeah, I mean, he's like the difference from what Trey had. He didn't have a Christian McCaffrey. He didn't have those type of supporting
Right.
cast. But Brock Purdy made the most out of everybody. But
Right. I mean,
that's
Purdy, he wasn't a finished uh, product. He had some warts, and he had some luck when it came to interceptions. And I don't think he's as good as the stats look today. But for a rookie, he's as good as you were going to get.
he outperformed the
You know what I
expectation.
mean? That's the thing. Like, it's a question of, can Purdy, was that the rookie version, and now he's going to have a new and improved version? Or is that all he can be? Because if that's all he can be last year, it's good, but I don't think it's quite good enough to be fully satisfied, right? To
Yeah,
keep you from looking at other people. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
If he can
So
get,
it's kind of you're kind of in this spot where, is he going to have a progression where that was him as a rookie and he's going to be better? And if he's going to be better, then he's going to be the franchise quarterback. If he
yeah,
never improves on what he was as a rookie, we're probably going to be looking to replace him at the end of his contract.
pretty much. That's why we got these rookie contracts. But man, I don't know about these little topics about Rodgers, man. That's the least of my concerns. But I don't think it would work well. Like you have two different egos that
Yeah,
don't,
him and Shanahan.
they will not work together. Like that's like dealing with two divas, bro. Like who wants to work with one another when somebody's not going to listen and say, "Nah, I'm going to do what I want."
Yeah, so like look at LaFleur. Look how much Rodgers tries to like throw LaFleur under the bus
Mm-hmm.
in the media, and LaFleur just whatever. He bows out of it. Shanahan wouldn't. Shanahan wouldn't put up with that. Like there would be a back and forth when it comes to press conferences between those two. I don't think it's a good match in that regard. And it's just, when you look at the financials of it, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's not.
It
And
cannot happen financially.
I just think this is the least topic we can even bring into, but I just see it as a dead topic because it's been going on for decades and everybody wants to like put the Rodgers and the Brady's, bro. Like put it to
It's
rest.
the it's the ultimate storybook ending. I think that's what drives that.
It
Like,
just never dies and it just keeps
it's
on going.
same with Tom Brady. Hey, he was, a childhood fan of the 49ers and was passed over by the 49ers. Maybe he could finish his career there and, check that one childhood dream box of leading the 49ers to a Super Bowl victory. Sounds great. I mean, I would certainly accept uh, a Super Bowl victory with, I don't care who the quarterback is.
Yeah, with two people who can't coexist. I mean, it's kind of it's worked before, but it's not something that Shanahan's willing to put up with. There's a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, you can work with the opposite person and it can work in their favor or it can work against each other. So it's like
Right.
it would be nice to see some odd couple win something because usually the odd couples are the ones that actually do something right. But
No, I mean,
sometimes,
Belichick and Brady were kind of an odd couple.
and usually it doesn't always go that way for certain people. But man, I don't know about these quarterbacks, man. Let's just get off these quarterback topics, man. I know there's a lot of going on with these other positions, but tight end, I think tight end can be like something we can improve better besides Kittle, outside of
Oh,
George
yeah.
Kittle. I don't know about the rest of those two guys, man. Like Rostwell, we've been giving this guy so many chances, but he never gets enough opportunities to play. Like, what's the purpose of bringing this guy back on the roster if he's not going to even play much snaps?
Ross Dwelly, look, he's an NFL quality tight end, but I feel like he's one of those guys that he looks the part on paper, but in games, it never comes to fruition. I would be, in this deep of a tight end class, perfectly happy if they drafted two tight ends.
Oh yeah,
They got what, 11 draft picks, draft a tight end in the 4th, 5th round, and draft another one in the 6th, 7th round, and let them compete. Let the best one make it, because I think you do need to start planning for a future without Kittle.
yeah, because the
He's
injuries.
entering his 30s. He's going to start entering his decline. His contract is becoming very expensive. It's hitting the back end of the deal where the 49ers backloaded it. So I think, obviously Kittle will be back this year, but I think after this year, it's anybody's guess how many more years he has with the 49ers. If they draft a tight end and they hit on him and they think he can be a really good starting caliber tight end, I could see them move on from Kittle after this year. I don't
I think
necessarily want that. It all kind of depends on what we see out of Kittle, but like with his injuries, his age, and his contract, that time's going to come sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's going to be a question mark because we've had to dealt with Kittle without playing on the field. And when we don't have that caliber tight end on the field, man, it just doesn't make much of a difference. Like Kittle's is like that glue of that offense, where he blocks, does a lot of great parts on the running game. He does great on catching the ball. He does his part, and it's like he's a complete package at the tight end position. But when you have to depend on a guy like Ross Dwelly and Charlie Warner, and then you pick up some other guys who were let go for reasons like Tyler Kroft, it just tells you that the tight end position is just not that great like everybody says. I mean, Ross Dwelly is just an average Joe tight end. He'll have his moments, but he used to be playing on the field, but snaps, I don't get it. Like, he's the kind of guy that when he gets his opportunity to play, he'll probably have his moment, and then you won't hear from this guy ever again. It's like, I don't understand that part.
I mean, it is what it is. I can't tell you how good Ross Dwelly truly is because he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunity, but there might be a reason for that. Certainly Kyle Shanahan knows better than we do. At this point, Dwelly has been around long enough. He's had enough opportunity over the years, I think, that if he was truly something, we would have seen it emerge by now.
Yeah, but we're just giving this guy too many chances. I get it, but I would prefer him to go elsewhere so we can replace something like that. But
like I said, I'm fine if they draft two guys and potentially replace both Dwelly and Warner. I don't think any of those are guys that we should be like, why are you trying to replace them? No, they're both like, they're okay if they're on the team, but you kind of wish you had better options.
Yeah, that's what the draft is for. I mean, I would be happy if we get two tight ends and they potentially take over those spots. I mean, then you have Kittle as your number one. You get somebody to complement. Like, instead of like developing somebody, why not you just get a proven college prospect tight end who's been on the block and actually can catch the ball instead of trying to invest somebody that doesn't seem to like catch on. You're just wasting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done, I guess, when it comes to that. There's a lot of tight ends out there that, they get this big following of, they're the next great one, and then they never even have a 1,000-yard season. I mean, it's hard, I think, for a tight end to produce because the offenses aren't built for a tight end producing. It's kind of like if you have a truly great tight end who's capable of being as good as a wide receiver in the receiving game, you'll change the offense to kind of get him the ball a little bit more. But most of the time, the offenses aren't built for the tight end to get the ball.
Yeah, it is. But when you don't have somebody to complement the number one tight end, that makes it very difficult to do. I mean, for Kittle, man, he is everything, but then some. But then he can't stay healthy at times, so you're gonna need that other tight end to step in, and that's what I think. Maybe the draft, it's pretty deep. I mean, there's quite a few guys, but okay. So since we're going into the draft topic, like we're in the third round, so if you can think of a player in mind that caught your attention that you think the Niners should get and probably at that spot range, who do you think the Niners should get in the draft that might surprise some people? We got to do some little search and takes, little diamond guys, check some guys that we might want to consider drafting.
I'm going to be honest with you right now. I trust this team when it comes to getting out of the first round. In the first round, I don't trust this team to make a draft pick. They don't have a good track record, but you get out of that first round, I'm going to trust the team because they have been right more than any other team in the league. So I'm not going to sit here and fall in love with a guy because I'm going to end up disappointed because the chances that the team drafts the guy that you fall in love with are slim to none. And I have done that so many times, and especially in the Shanahan era, what I think is going to be good and would be a good fit, they never go with. They always go with somebody else, and it's like, okay, I don't see eye to eye with you. So I've just kind of given up trying to fall in love and be like, oh, this is the guy we got to get. I'm going to trust who they want. Now, I do have preferences on positions. I want an offensive tackle early. I want a safety early. I think we need to address that. I wouldn't mind a defensive end early unless we end up signing one of these free agents that are still out there, like a Justin Houston. But outside of that, like, I'm not going to pick a specific one because I don't want to get my hopes up because I'm sick of being disappointed.
Oh, yeah. It's so like disgusting.
I mean, I will be a homer. I would not mind getting Payne Durham later in the draft because he's a Purdue guy. and I think he's a good fit for a tight end. I just don't think he will not be the replacement for Kittle. He doesn't have that high upside, but I think he's somebody that can come in and right away, day one, he's a decent receiver and a decent blocker. You know what I mean? Right away, he can come in and not skip a beat. It's just he doesn't have that super high upside because he's not truly that great of an athlete.
He's kind of more like a better version of Ross Dwelly, just more of a blocker.
He's one of those guys. He doesn't have. In Ross Dwelly, I think is a good comparison. He doesn't have a weakness. You know, he doesn't have a part like, well, he
He's
just can't
consistent.
do that. But he doesn't have anything that he's like, wow, he's tremendous at that. You know what I mean? And that's kind of Ross Dwelly. Ross Dwelly, he's a decent blocker. He's a decent receiver. He has decent speed. He's kind of decent all over, but he's not great at anything. And that's kind of Payne Durham.
Payne Durham's more like he can block, and that's what makes it so good. I mean, I guess since you're going with the homers with Purdue, there's this cornerback from Purdue that's got that size, 6'3". I guess he's only allowed one touchdown throughout his starting career. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind him. I don't know that whether or not he's going to last. He's one of those guys that like they think some teams will fall in love with him and he might go prior to the third, but then others rate him as being a later round draft pick. So he's kind of like all over the board. You don't know exactly where he's going to go, but I certainly wouldn't mind if you say it's a Purdue guy. I'm on board with it.
Yeah, just like Stuart Swagger was telling me about certain players that I should keep an eye on. Like he even said Charlie Jones will be a good sleeper.
Yes, Stu is he's one of those childhood guys for me. You know, he was at Purdue when I had season tickets. So, because that's my hometown. So, like, I've seen a lot of his Purdue games.
Oh, yeah. He broke records. And the
Most
funny part, the funny part is he isn't hard to reach out with. You just have to tag him or communicate with him. And he seems like a really good dude.
You know whose record he broke at Purdue for most interceptions?
I know who it is, man. You can tell me. I get a feeling he's one of the greats, too. One of the greats is in the Hall of Fame, actually.
Yeah. Rod Woodson, yeah.
Yes, sir. Rod Woodson.
Yeah, Rod Woodson. I mean, I'm being a homer now, getting off of 49ers topics, but like Rod Woodson is a freak of an athlete. Like he was a track star in addition to being a football star. And to me, he's in the top 5 for cornerbacks all time.
Yeah, cornerbacks are safeties too, but he's been ball hawking it consistently. But since we're going by the draft of players, I mean, I guess we can't put our hopes up, but I like to put my hopes.
It's really hard not having a draft pick to the third.
To the third,
yeah. I think in the first and still even to a degree in the second round, you have a pretty good idea of the prospects that are in that range. You get to the third, there's the chance like, wow, everybody had a 6th round grade on this guy and he went in the third. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where you hit this mark where you just don't know what to expect anymore. It's gone too deep and it's too much on potential. You know what I mean?
Yeah, too much risk potential. But if you get him in the third round and he pans out really good and everybody had a grade like that low, then maybe they didn't do their homework on this guy. I mean, as far as,
he wasn't a third. He was even later, last pick in the draft. But like, how'd that happen?
How did he slide that far when he had better numbers? And I heard a lot of reviews of him like the previous year that he could have easily been a high draft pick, like maybe a 3rd to a 2nd round grade. But
right, like you can at least understand like Brady. You know, Brady, he struggled to keep his starting job at Michigan in college.
And that's why
And that's why he slid because he wasn't consistent. Now, I think when he got drafted, I mean, you can just see it, you know, that viral photo of him at the combine, you know, something changed in him when he became a pro and motivated him. And because now, you know, he's the greatest of all time because he stays in such insane shape. But that pre-draft photo shows he wasn't that guy at draft time.
Yeah, he wasn't. But like, okay, as far as like other needs, I mean, I guess we can't have our hopes on these players. So it's like, I do have draft crushes. I do have some homer bias in some ways, but last year there was a couple of guys that I had some crushes on, and the Niners just hit like on a few of them. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can keep it going. They kind of listen to me sometimes. Sometimes they do. I guess they must have like checked out the Spencer Burford interview to get the suggestion. Maybe they got the idea like this is the guy we want, and they met with him before. And then there is the Drake Jackson. I was pretty high on Drake Jackson. I thought in the 2nd round he would be in that spot. If he slides, I would take him in a heartbeat. That pick turned out to be pretty good. The ones that I was pretty high on, a lot of these Oklahoma players, I get that we don't get them all the time. I'm like, man, can we get at least one Oklahoma player for once? But I'm hoping they get Braden Willis. That's the guy I'm hoping for. Like, I think he's got the ability. He's a good blocker. He's an oversized receiver that's a tight end. He's a Swiss Army knife. The Niners have met with him multiple times, and it kind of tells me that maybe they like what they've seen from this kid. So I'm guessing, okay.
It's hard to know because the 49ers are right there with anybody else for the most. Using visits as a tactic.
Oh, yeah, it could be.
They draft guys that literally nobody has any record of them ever talking to, and then they don't draft guys that they visited with 3-4 times. They saw him at the combine. They brought him in for a pre-draft visit. They were at the pro day, and then they don't even draft the guy, because they're just throwing a smokescreen. The Niners, it's hard to predict this regime's draft. They like to play that game.
If I'm guessing on one of these players, I guess the tight end is so good, maybe they're probably just keeping people guessing.
Yeah, I would certainly, if there's a tight end that's expected to go in that 3rd, 4th round pick, and the 49ers have not talked to them at all, I wouldn't count that out.
Man, but who would be that tight end? It would just be because I think we met with a lot.
This tight end class is so deep, it's going to be, I think, hard to predict because you could see guys that are 5th round, expected to go 5th round because they're the 10th tight end or something, go in the 2nd because there's so many good ones that it's just going to be personal bias, and they're all so close, and it's such a deep class. Like, it's going to be, you're going to see some surprises coming with this tight end.
Oh, dude, the guy from Iowa has the talent too, Sam Laporta. I like that. Yeah. Dude. That's another tight end that I might be okay with because he's a proven product.
There's a lot of Niner fans that are pushing him because of the whole Iowa connection with George Kittle and all that. But the chances of that happening, I'm not saying it can't. It's anybody's guess at this point, but that would be insane to have 2 great tight ends come out of the same class at the same time. You know what I mean?
And then would be kind of crazy is just to bring in 2 Iowa tight ends at the same time, but then get somebody that Brock Purdy worked with in the past too, and get a receiver like from Iowa State too. That'd be like, wow.
Why not trying to build continuity? Why not a North Dakota State offensive lineman that a lot of people are talking about out there, huh?
Cody.
Why is that a Purdy connection, not a Lance?
That's a Lance connection too. Like you got Cody. I don't know how you say his name, but he's kind of been moving up draft boards. But
yeah, I don't think he's gonna last.
I think he'll be gone by then. So it's like the realistic ones that I see us getting by that draft spot is either maybe Tyler Steen. I don't know. I've heard a little bit of review grades, but then Wanya Morris is somebody that I'm hearing about the most. And yeah, I'm an Oklahoma bias, so I guess he kind of fits the mold. And I see 3rd or 4th round grade out of this guy. So he could be he was starting right tackle at Oklahoma, was a transfer from Tennessee, but has that ability. And there's other guys too. I mean, you got, man, like there's just a lot of good ones. I guess, I don't know if that Georgia tackle is going to be around. What's his name? McWinden or something. But I heard Carter Warren will be another guy to check out from Pittsburgh if he's there.
All I want to see is high upside.
High upside.
Because when you have a stacked roster, and you're not like, hey, I need somebody to come in and be able to start right away, then take the flyers. You know what I mean? Take the guy that has a 1 in 10 chance, but that 1 in 10 chance is he's a superstar. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see high upside, very athletic guys at all positions, even offensive line because of the amount of pulling that this offense needs. You need athletic offensive linemen. I want to see the people that have super high upside. They just have, obviously a much bigger risk to them than others.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll have to wait and see what happens, man. So, upsides, we take all the risk and just hope for it the best. The best thing about drafting these guys with high upside is we can develop them. And if they pay off, they pay off. You get this Kittle, you get this Dre Greenlaw. You get a lot of these guys that you didn't even have to invest too high on. Like Samuel Womack. We didn't know who he was, but he's a guy with high upside because he's a solid nickel cornerback in college. I mean, we can go on with all these other guys, but Isaiah Oliver, we just signed. This guy is an oversized nickel. Like, he's a 6 foot tall guy. I thought that was the most underrated signing by far.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll be really interested to see how he works out because last year was certainly his best year. All his other years as a pro, he's had a very high missed tackle percentage. So I'll be very curious to see which one's the real one. Did he learn something? Did he progress? And last year is the new norm? Or is it the previous years when he struggled with tackling?
Yeah, we'll see about that. But as far as all that, dude, we just have to it's just a great question mark. The quarterback position is just gonna open up the question marks. That's the discussion of the offseason. But then the
Is
draft
the season here yet?
isn't even there yet. But I think most of the draft, we're just gonna get a lot of depth pieces. I think that's it. I think we might hit on maybe one or two starters, but I don't think they're gonna be right away starters. They're probably gonna
No,
be
there's
mostly
not
redshirt.
many. There's not jobs open.
There's not. Like maybe if somebody's willing to push McKivitz out of the job, but I don't see it. I don't know. Can we get somebody in the third round that can compete for that job?
We could. I mean, you find offensive linemen that late in the draft that are capable. It's just not very likely.
And all the other guys are mostly dead pieces at this point. That's what I like about this team. We get a lot of these guys filled in. We just need to go for those guys that can step in as backups or develop. So I think the way we approach it may not be the most popular thing we do, but we always fill those voids and get some other guys to fill in. And we keep reloading comp picks consistently. So this team doesn't miss a beat. We've always kind of restocked the draft. We may lose some guys, but we keep adding those picks. And we keep getting these guys red shirt. So it's like we're like the red shirt, like we're like the college version of a red shirt team. You know, we get these freshmen in, they take the time to learn, and it's a good situation. Shanahan just keeps them ready.
Yeah, it's better than the red shirt version that they tried to do with the Harbaugh years in Bulky, when it was, hey, we're going to take this highly talented guy that has a major injury, and he'll be there next year. Oh, wait, the major injury ruined him.
Yeah, that's the problem. But I think they've always taken the right upsides, but some of them have paid off. Some of them haven't, but it's just when can the season get any quicker is what we're hoping for. You know, we got.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I want to know the schedule. Are they going to start the Niners off hard? Or are they going to have like the easier games and then it's going to finish hard? When's those? They got a lot of East Coast around my area in Pittsburgh. You know, they have Philly on the road. They have Pittsburgh on the road. They have Cleveland on the road. If those are back to back, any of those three become back to back, they're probably going to have an East Coast trip where they stay in Youngstown again, which is where the Yorks are from.
Well, yeah, Youngstown is where.
So I'll be really curious to see when those games are, because I could see the schedule starting something like they're going to have Philly in a rematch of the NFC Championship game, like Sunday night, week 1. And then they're going to have the Pittsburgh game week 2. You know, I could see that being the start. I really think that Philly game will be week 1. That's just a guess, just a hunch. It makes a lot of sense in terms of everybody wanting to see it. The whole, Niners saying if we had a quarterback, we would have won. All of that gets to be right away week 1.
It could be. I would definitely be okay with that part because we want to see who the better team is, and why not do it that way? You know, it's like, but realistically, man, I would rather just see what happens. But the one game that I mark on my calendar is either the Cowboys, because my family are mostly between Cowboys, and it's always that fun week to trash their team. And it's always a better feeling when you get that W over them, and then they don't call you back. They just they give you a little time away. They don't talk that smack. They go quiet for a while, and that's beautiful. But when I don't win, they got to keep going, and I don't hear the last of it. Yeah. But when I win, they can't say nothing.
That's the nature of sports fandom, and that's what makes it what it is. Like, it's the ability to smack talk and then having it come back at you sometimes because it didn't work out for you.
Yeah. Then the NFC West is interesting. Some people are saying that maybe Seattle made some significant improvements. Maybe people are writing off the Rams. We don't know. But it's the most interesting.
You can write off the Rams.
We can write them off, even though they're kind of, I guess, yeah, they're going on a fire sale, but they still got, they're going to come up with their own excuse. Oh, we were coming off injuries. Well, dude, we did the same thing. We were going through that the first couple of years under Shanahan.
That defense is depleted. They have Aaron Donald, and that's it. That defense is going to be terrible.
Yeah, if you look at their lineups, it's Aaron Donald and nobodies.
Yeah. So, like, by nobodies, you mean guys that you can say their name, and even people that are very avid NFL fans are going to go, who's that?
Who's that dude?
They're penciled in to be a starter.
Y'all know we're starting 3-5.
Right.
It's a slow trend start. I can disagree on that, but yeah, we get a lot of these so-called haters. Hey, we got a Lance hater in the comment, but let's just say it's irrelevant at the moment because he hasn't done nothing yet.
What's the point?
What's the point? But it brings fuel. And
When a guy hasn't been, if you want to hate on him and say the guy can't stay healthy, I'm all for it. If you want to say, oh, the guy is terrible, nobody freaking knows. Nobody knows.
nobody knows like what to expect. Like, dude, we're built different. Like NFC West, bro, we've been kind of very tough on. We've given the Rams the toughest time. Seattle, I didn't think for 1 second we would just sweep them, but 3 times in a season, that's unheard of. When is the last time that we've
Fine by
seen?
me.
Yeah, when is the last time we've seen Seattle get beat 3 times by their divisional opponent? 2004, the Rams. That team was in St. Louis, but that's a once upon a time ago. But it was a great feeling to see a lot of these Seattle fans not say shit all season. They kept talking all year and saying we're going to
very, very quiet. Put it that way.
Yeah. But you get a lot of these Rams fans who just kind of chirp a little bit, but then they can't really say nothing, bro, because we've beaten them consistently year in and year out. It don't matter.
I mean, they got the ultimate trump card. Hey, when's the last time you won a Super Bowl?
That's all they got to use for. But then the best part is they say, oh, you can't use your 5 Super Bowls. It doesn't count no more. Like, dude, it's the Super Bowl era. Where are you guys getting this from? And even there's quite a few Rams fans that kind of get where I'm saying. Like, they're even saying, oh, yeah, it counts, bro. We can't discredit. But, yeah, we done recently. I guess you can say. I told them this is just like an old $5 bill is better than a new $2 bill.
I mean, they're the same. But, yeah, you know, I get what you're saying. Like, you definitely count all the Super Bowl victories, but when you've won multiple more recently than a team, like it I wouldn't say discredits, but it is kind of like yeah, you can have your 5. I've had 2 in my lifetime because at this point, half the fan base hasn't seen a Super Bowl for the 49ers.
I only remember like barely one that I remember as a kid, but that was a long ass time ago. And that's the worst part about it is when you're a fan and you only remember the recent, like the old one from a long time ago. That's what really got me into the Niners because I seen the way we beat the Cowboys and I just saw the reaction of my family. When they saw that defeat and they had that little disappointment, I looked at that TV and I said, that's my team. Because
you're the black sheep in the family.
Yeah, I was
that's a black sheep mentality of, oh, look at that disappointment on my family's face. I love it.
I love it. And it's always been that way. But it was because my brother influenced me into that team. So it wasn't like, I don't know how my brother became a fan, but just watching the rivalry and him just being around him was something. But, you know, my family had tried for many, many years before I even made my decision to be a Niners fan was just very hard. I just wasn't that intrigued with the Cowboys. I didn't really care for their history. I just thought, I like California team better. It's more like in the Bay. It's more better. There was people who tried to influence me into the Raiders. I just said, nah, I'm not into that type of team. But, you know, everybody has their own cup of tea. Like a lot of my family, it's just, you know, but when you look at yourself in the mirror, like, what made you a Niner fan? You know, like that's what they're always asking. Like, why you became a fan if your family is a Cowboys fan? Like, I don't get it. Did somebody slap some sense out of you or something? I'm like, no, I just like seeing some people go through some defeats. I like to be the bad guy. Like, what made you a fan? I know you probably had some family members from other fan base, right?
Yeah, so I grew up about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Chicago. So most of my family were Bear fans. And I was also born in 85. So I came up in that post dominant Bears era. But I became a Niners fan because I swapped schools in the middle of 3rd grade. And my best friend was a Niners fan. And so I just kind of fit in by becoming a Niners fan with him. And it very quickly turned into an obsession. It kind of all coincided with me being 9 years old and truly starting to watch football on TV at the same time. And it was only more than a decade later that it finally dawned on me that when I swapped schools in the middle of 3rd grade, it was at the end of January 1995. What had just happened? The Niners were literally winning the Super Bowl when I swapped schools. So that's why a lot of my friends were Niner fans.
Ah, so I guess you come from the Bears family, so I guess it's a little different situation. But man, a lot of these Chicago Bears fans, like I've seen a lot of these little argument debates with some of these guys, and they keep on bragging about something about that seems irrelevant. Like I'm even telling this one Bears fan, dude, like Justin Fields just wasn't a fit for us. I'm not even bitter by that. I'm like saying, dude, it's good for you. Be happy that you got him. I don't think we even have no single doubt in our mind. I think we really like Trey Lance and we're happy with who we got.
I'm not a big Justin Fields fan, anyways.
Me
So
either. Ohio State quarterbacks have been total busts.
I don't see the consistency passing. Maybe he develops. You know, Jalen Hurts kind of lacked that consistency as well, and he developed. I think they're pretty similar at this stage. I think Justin Fields is certainly very close to like a Lamar Jackson in terms of running. He's not quite the Lamar level, but he's close. He's just different when it comes to running. But I don't see it passing wise, and I don't think it's going to develop. His delivery is atrocious. It is so elongated. I just don't see that ever developing. I don't see his pocket awareness developing. I think he's always going to be trying to take off and run. I kind of see him going. It's kind of a bad comparison because this guy was kind of a head case who didn't put in the work. But he reminds me kind of like I think he goes the way of Vince Young. Comes in, looks really promising as a rookie and as a second-year starter because he's so athletic. And then when the chips come down and he's got to actually develop as a passer, it just doesn't happen. I don't see him developing as a passer. Could be wrong. I don't think he's the same head case that Vince Young was. Vince Young supposedly not only never watched film, couldn't even break down the film. Those are the reports that are out, now after his career ended.
Yeah, they just that's just the difference with most quarterbacks. And Justin Fields to me just doesn't fit the Niners team. He's going to be more of a running quarterback. You see his throwing motion, you see a little throwing here and there, but that's not what we need at quarterback. I keep telling these people, man, what do we want? Another Marcus Mariota? Nah, I'll pass. Like, I get that some Chicago fans are happy about it. And I'm like saying, bro, I'm happy for you guys because you guys really think you guys got yourself a quarterback, but we didn't really need him, bro. Look at our track record. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Shanahan wants somebody that plays under the schedule, and when the schedule doesn't work, can maybe create something. And Fields is somebody that goes, what schedule?
Yeah. And Lance is kind of the guy who goes the extra mile. He goes the extra mile. Like, actually, Lance is putting some extra work. Mm-hmm. But the best part about it is the guy only has very limited experience. That's the only downside. That's what I've been trying to explain to those other fans. Like I said, dude, I get it. He's only started 17 games in college. I get that he's only had 4 starts. He's been hurt. That's the question mark. You can't call the kid a bust until he actually plays at least let him play this full season to get a full grade. It's objective. It's incomplete for me.
I think that's where he's at. Incomplete.
It's incomplete. That's like me doing a project, right? Like, a project and then something came into delay, right? Let's say the COVID year came into play and we had to delay it, right? We couldn't get to class. We couldn't turn it in. So it gave us another time to work with it. So, and that's what it reminds me of. You know how we had the COVID year and everybody had to delay stuff? That's what it seems like.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe he never gets that opportunity. It could be that Purdy comes back, is ready to go. Lance doesn't get the opportunity. He ends up going to a different team, but never being able to find that starting chance.
I mean, everybody's already glorifying a guy like Brock Purdy. You don't find quarterbacks in the late rounds like this overnight. So I think what he's proven that he is a capable backup that could just step in and be a starter at some point. But don't take it. I'm not taking no knack on Brock Purdy. I just don't think he is the guy. I see a lot of let's see what. Oh, you gotta get going?
Yeah, I mean, I see potential for Purdy. I think he could end up being the guy. I just want to see what Lance has first. If Lance comes in and he hasn't progressed, I don't think you give him the benefit of the doubt and giving him, full season and see what he can turn into. But at least give him a shot first.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
That's where I fall in. I think Purdy could end up being the guy. I think Lance is a higher upside, so I want to give him a shot. And if he doesn't pan out, then go to Lance.
Okay,
And if
absolutely.
that means only 3 games, then it means only 3 games. Sorry, Lance, you had 3
had your
games and
chance.
you weren't there. You still looked like a rookie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's a little unfair because it would only be, games 5, 6, and 7 for him, and that's kind of a short sample. But at the same time, like you're here because you got injured.
Yeah, that's what happens. Thank you for your time. I know you probably got to get going, but for everybody else, tell everybody where they can find your channel, and hey, hopefully down the road we can definitely catch up again.
Yeah, not a problem. Just hit me up, and if my schedule's free, I got no problem coming on. I'll talk football with anybody.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Go check out the Gold Stutter podcast. Go follow him on Twitter. He does some good debates on the Niners Twitter community. Sometimes they disagree, sometimes they agree with him, but we all got to agree we love our Niners, and we can all.
I'm not a homer. I'll put it that way. Like, I'm not somebody that tries to be negative just to be negative. I don't go there. I try to assess whatever it is, really anything in my life, for exactly what it is. I'm an extreme realist, and if that means it's negative, then it's going to be negative. If it means it's positive, it's going to be positive. It's either or for me. Like, I have no problem saying either one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hate to be a people pleaser. I'm not going to apologize for my takes, man. If you don't like it, oh well. There's always other channels. But hey, thank you for your time, bro. Have a great day. For everybody else, thanks for tuning in. And as always, guys, we'll keep you all posted, and go Niners.